Hi, this is Drew Erickson back again talking about money, not math, because I believe most people love money without realizing how often it doesn't work the same way as math. And because I love our country, but I believe our government is terrible at managing money and should not control our financial future. So my goal is to bring you enough value that you can kind of take into your own personal planning and add value to your future financial planning lives. I think I worded that kind of funny, but hopefully you got the point. All right, so before I get into the conversation of today, I first wanted to just say that the local Thief River Falls Prowlers wrestling coach, Kenny Geyser, came and spoke to the Rotary Club today and highlighted the significance of their success this year for the wrestling team. Congratulations to them and congratulations to the 7 kids going down to state. So that's really awesome. It's always fun to see more success at LHS. All right, so getting into the conversation. Today I'm talking about the difference between compounding versus amortizing interest. All right, so I've talked about this in the past, and I'm sure I'll talk about it in the future because I think it's one of the most important things for us to understand, or from a financial money standpoint. All right, so first I just want to say that the reason why this has come up a lot in conversation for me recently, and I just want to be very clear about something. First, when we're comparing, no idea is good or bad until compared to its alternative. So if you're comparing paying, I'll just use the example of house, paying off your house fast because that's the most recent one I can think of in my head. If you are comparing paying off your house faster versus taking that money and buying something from a lifestyle perspective, whether it's going on vacation or buying a new four-wheeler or something like that, of course, paying off your house faster is a better financial move. However, if you are comparing paying off your house faster versus saving more, it's very likely that saving more if earlier is a better financial move because of the power of compounding interest versus amortizing. Now, keep in mind, the growth of our money in the future is not guaranteed, whereas the mortgage on your house relatively is. So it's possible that that statement isn't true, but with that in mind, I just want to use very, very conservative numbers and interest versus growth rates to give you an example of the powerful difference between compounding versus amortizing interest. All right, so with all that in mind, keep in mind today's going to be a lot of numbers. So if you like numbers, you're going to love this. If you don't, hopefully it still brings you value. But absolutely reach out if you have follow-up questions, and I'm more than willing to explain to you different situations. But keep in mind these are just examples. They do not. Every situation is different, right? All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we'll jump into the examples that we talked about. All right, so first you're going to see. I drew it all out ahead of time, so you guys didn't have to watch me fumble through the whole thing. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up like the last time I did this, but if I did, well, we all make mistakes, right? So, all right, so hopefully my screen is popping up for you right now. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, great. So the example that we're using is compounding versus amortized interest. All right, so I know there's a lot going on my screen. I'm going to walk through each part with you. Example 1 is if we had $300,000 cash and we were deciding between buying a $300,000 home in cash versus taking a 30-year mortgage with 4% interest and investing your $300,000 at 4% actual return each year. Now, a couple things to note. You can't always get 0% down on a home. If it's your first time buying a house or if you're a military veteran, you can in some situations. But in many cases, you got to at least put 3% or something like that down. So this is purely just for an example, all right? Every individual situation, the numbers are going to change and things like that. But I just wanted to really exaggerate the difference between compounding versus amortized. All right, so before we get into the math, we're just going to look at, you'll notice the red line is our amortized interest line, because you'll notice that anytime you take a loan, you're going to pay more interest in the first few years of your debt than you are in the end. Anytime you invest your money, you're going to get less growth in the beginning than you do at the end. All right, so first let's look at the $300,000. If you take $300,000 home in cash. All right, so you pay for the house in cash, and therefore you have no debt. All right, so the value of this is that if you absolutely hate debt, which many people do, right, and this is kind of the emotional response, is if you are let's say you had the option, so $300,000 house, 4% interest over a 30-year mortgage. That mortgage would cost you the $300,000 of principal plus the $216,000 of interest that you'd have to pay, right? So this is what the bank's going to show you, which is going to stress a lot of us out. And we're like, we need to get this paid off. $216,000 of interest, that's terrible. I'm almost going to have to buy my house twice, right? So that's what we look at. And that's where if you're comparing paying off your house faster versus just buying more stuff, of course, paying off your house faster is probably a better idea. However, when we look at the numbers, this is the amortized interest. In the first year, you're going to be paying about $12,000 of interest on that debt. And then as your time goes along, your interest payments are going to go down. And the last year, you're only going to be paying about $367 of interest on that debt. So overall, if you didn't buy the house in cash, your amortized interest would be $300,000 of principal paid plus $216,000 of interest paid equals $516,000 total cost of the home. So what that says is your opportunity cost is by you buying the house $300,000 in cash, you essentially saved you essentially saved $216,000 of interest that you didn't have to pay, right? Because you had to put the $300,000 of principal in, but you didn't have to pay the interest because you didn't have that 30-year mortgage. However, what if instead of paying for the house in cash, you put 0% down and you invested your $300,000? Well, if we look at it that way, $300,000 invested over 30 years at 4% return, I'm going to calculate, which the number is already here, but I'll click it again, your account would grow to $973,000. All right? So what that's saying is you start at 300. Hopefully this shows up for you down here. Well, my computer is, oh, there we go. So after 1 year, your account would go to about $312,000, right? So in year one, you're going to get about $12,000 of growth. In your last year, you're going to get about $37,000 of growth. It's going to go from 936 to about 973. Notice all my numbers around it. So if instead you took the loan, which is going to cost you the $516,000, and you invested your $300,000 and you got 4% return, that would grow to $973,000. So in the first year, it would grow about $12,000, and the last year it would grow about $37,000 of interest of growth, right? Compared to the amortized interest of the debt of $12,000 of interest in year one and $367,000 in the last year. Now, just a side note, if you're listening to this on any of my podcasts, this can be almost impossible to follow along with unless you're really good with numbers and writing this down. So I apologize, but hopefully the grand total of the numbers and concepts is still bringing you value. And again, like I said, feel free to check out my videos or reach out to me directly. So doing the math, if you invested the $300,000, it would grow to about $973,000. Minus the cost of the house of $516,000, that's a net gain of $457,000 or 89% more value than the cost of the home. So we can look at it like this. You have option one, you pay off your $300,000 house with cash, and you don't have to pay the $216,000 interest. That's a win, right? Or option two, you pay the $516,000 for your house, $300,000 principal plus $216,000 of interest, and you get $973,000 of value. So would you trade $516,000 for $973,000? Right? In other words, the option two, investing your money, is going to grow you $457,000 more net it's going to have $457,000 more net gain than just simply paying off your house. All right, so hopefully that's clear. I know I didn't necessarily say that as clean as I could have, but the point is, amortized interest, $300,000 debt is going to cost you $216,000 interest. Compounding interest, $300,000 invested over 30 years is going to grow $673,000 of growth. All right, that's 3 times more growth than the cost of the interest. All right, so example 2, since most people aren't just buying their house in cash or taking 0% down. Example 2 is, what if for the same $300,000 house, we were looking at, I know a lot of people that are like, oh, I need to save up to buy my first house or their second house, or they're deciding how much of their old house, the equity of their old house, they want to roll over into buying their new house, or should we pull out some of the cash and different things like that. There's a lot of conversations that go around. But in this example, we'll say, okay, what if we're putting 20% down on a $300,000 house, which equals $60,000, or what if we put 0 down on that $300,000 house and invested the $60,000? Again, both either 4% interest on the mortgage or 4% growth on our investment are the two options. All right, so option 1, we put 20% down, which is $60,000. That leaves us with a $240,000 mortgage at 4% interest. All right, so we'll come back to the calculator just so I can show that I didn't make up the numbers that we're using. You'll notice again, $240,000 principal paid, $172,000 of interest paid. So a grand total of $412,000 total cost of the home over those 30 years. All right. Versus if we put 0% down on the home and invest the $60,000, getting 4% actual return each year. The $300,000 principal plus $216,000 interest says that our home is going to cost us $516,000, right? So if you didn't invest the money, right, or if you just like listen to the bank who tells you to pay off your house as fast as possible, or maybe they don't tell you that, but they at least show you what it looks like. By not putting 20% down, this $516,000, the total cost of this home is going to be $104,000 more than putting 20% down. Right? That's the total cost of the home. So putting 20% down would have saved this person $104,000 of interest to be paid over those years. If I did my math right, please correct me if I didn't. Or not just interest, but principal too. But what we have to keep in mind is the $60,000 growing at 4% over 30 years is going to grow to almost $195,000. All right, so $60,000 growing at 4% return for 30 years is going to grow to about $195,000. So if you think about your money as a balance sheet, this person had a the cost of the home was $516,000, but they got $195,000 of growth, or their account value, if they look at their account, is worth $195,000. So the net cost of their home was only $321,000, compared to the person who put 20% down, their total and net cost was $412,000. So at the end of the day, if you had, in 30 years from today, would you rather only have to pay $412,000 for your house, would have $0 in your hypothetical account, or would you rather pay $516,000 for your house and have $195,000 in your account? All right, so that's what I said at the bottom. Basically, not putting anything down and investing the difference is $91,000 or 22% more efficient. So if we just kind of, if I finish out that thought, right? So this is gonna be really a scratchy drawing, but option 1, 20% down so these are both in 30 years. You can basically say his assets over those 30 years are 0. His liability over the 30 years, or the cost that he had within his account, this person was $412,000, right? Whereas option 2, my handwriting is not good in real life, and you add a screen to the equation, it only gets worse, so I apologize. 0% down. This person's assets after the 30 years is $195,000, and his liability over the 30 years, not at the end of the 30 years, hopefully I spelled this right, because I'm just proving how bad I am at spelling in real life. Liability, yeah, I didn't spell it right, but that's okay. You guys get the point. Liability is $516,000. That's over those 30 years, right? So that kind of rounds out the end of the thought. All right. So like I said, I just threw a lot at you. Whether you followed along with all the numbers or not, or all the example perfectly, the main point is, keep in mind, when you are paying a debt, the interest is amortized. So it starts high and gets smaller. When you're saving or growing your wealth, your growth starts low and gets bigger, right? And if the interests on both the growth and the debt are equal, the compounding will almost triple the amortized interest. And when it comes to other percentage comparisons, we have to do that individually, but I'm not going to throw a bunch of math at you guys for 25 minutes, even though anyone who knows me knows I probably would nerd out and get really excited about that. So the point is, hopefully this conversation brings you value. At the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with paying off your house early if it's just emotionally you can't stand debt. My goal is not to tell you what to do or what's right or what's wrong. My goal is simply just to provide you with this example so that from a logical and efficient standpoint, you have all the tools available to you to make the best decision for you. But if you decide emotionally that's just more important to get rid of that debt than it is to grow your wealth, that's okay too. It's your choice. So thanks again for following along with the conversation, hopefully participating. I really appreciate your time and hope I brought you value. Please let me know what you thought by reaching out, commenting, or even better yet, sharing this conversation with a friend. If you're listening to this conversation, I apologize for how hard it is to follow along. I strongly encourage you to check out one of my videos or reach out to me directly and we'll go through one of your personal examples. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.